Whoa. What is this thing?
I am the genie of the swell bottle. I'm here to grant you 3 wishes. Choose wisely.
Go.
No! Stop! Give it back!
That's not okay. Whoa. Oh. Oh. Sir, I swear it's not what it looks like.
Just killed somebody.
Okay, so she just stole the backpack from that
Dude,
girl.
I literally just saw you shoot.
I was just trying to.
saw you shoot.
Officer, it's not what it looks like, I swear.
You're going to jail.
I could really use some help right now. This is not a good situation. I'm not sure what to do, but I think the genie and the wishes could really help me out right now. I'm trying to think back to Comm450 and Professor Feister's class, and I definitely learned something important about one of the rhetoricians. I wish I had Socrates as my lawyer.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let me begin by informing you all that my client, Miles Grossman, is a former student of mine. Yes, everyone is entitled to counsel, but not everyone can have I, Socrates, as their lawyer. I have come to defend Mr. Grossman today because any student of mine who has admitted into my school goes through my training, undergoes strict practices, and is made a noble man.
Defense, who is your first witness?
The defendant, Miles Grossman.
You may call your witness to the stand.
You're good. Mr. Grossman, how old are you?
15 years old.
15 years old. And what do you think most boys your age do at 15 years old?
Most frequent bars and brothels and cause mischief around town.
And what do you do?
I attend the school of Socrates to get a rhetoric education.
So if most boys your age spend their time setting a bad example for the rest of society and drinking themselves to death, who do you frequent school with?
My classmates make up some of the most noble citizens, statesmen, and decorated leaders in the entire community.
So, spending most of your time with these prominent citizens, would you say you model your behavior after them?
Absolutely.
Mr. Grossman, can you tell me what you saw that day you were walking down the street?
I left my apartment building to go to work, and the first thing that I saw was a man had taken off with a young woman's backpack. She was not fast enough to catch up with him, and he had ran away. So I thought the most noble thing to do based on my education was to take off and catch up to them with the hopes that I could get this backpack back for that young girl.
Do you believe you were wrong in shooting the criminal?
I do not at all, because what I did was in pure self-defense. I was very scared. It was a very quick situation. Things happened very fast, and when they pulled the gun on me, I didn't know what else to do, so I acted in my natural instincts, and it was absolutely the correct decision.
So would you say your teachings have led you to shoot this man?
I would not say they have led me to shoot this man, but they led me to make the decision that encouraged me to make that choice. What I did was shoot a man who was a danger to society and could have done this numerous more times. And by taking him out of the equation, I believe that our world is a better place now.
Thank you. No further questions.
Would the prosecution like to cross-examine?
Prosecution rests, Your Honor.
The defense may make their closing statements.
Ladies and gentlemen, it may not be common knowledge, but to attend my school and to acquire educational intelligence, one must have natural ability, extensive training and practices, and model remarkable performance. Education is used as a powerful tool of persuasion for human betterment. And that is exactly what the defendant here has done and learned. He was my student. Everything he did was based on my teachings. He was not wrong for murdering the criminal. The defendant made our society a better place, and he should be praised for his actions, not punished.
Go on.
Okay.
Jurors, how do you find the defendant?
We find the defendant not guilty.
Help! Help! There's a knife!
Are you okay? Oh my goodness, what happened? Oh my goodness, are you alright?
Dude, are you serious?
Help, we need some help.
Again?
Oh, no,
I can't
officer,
believe you got off last time.
I swear, officer,
Stab someone? Oh my deal. Oh my god.
that's not what happened.
Oh my god, bro.
Not again. All right, now who would be the best lawyer for this situation right here? I wish for Confucius to be my lawyer.
The defense may open.
I, Confucius, stand here defending this young, innocent man from being accused of a crime in which he did not commit. A policeman happened to find my defendant in a sticky situation, but by no means should that allow us to jump to any conclusions. My defendant was found holding, yes, a bloody knife above the body of a, yes, stabbed victim. On paper, sure, it would look like he committed this awful crime. But what seems to be true on paper is never the entire story. Here, I must preach that during this trial, you pay close attention to detail before jumping to any conclusions and consider the defendant's morals. I beg the jury to consider all angles and all the evidence that the investigative teams have provided with us today.
Defense, who would you like to call to the stand?
I'd like to call forensic evidence expert Dr. Jones Brown to the stand.
You may proceed.
Dr. Jones, thank you for being here today.
The pleasure is mine.
So can we start by talking about how many fingerprints were on the weapon?
We found 14.
14. And was my defendant, my client, one of them?
Yes.
And what does that mean exactly?
That means they were one of 14 people who could have been a part of this murder.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about the blood at the scene?
So some interesting technology that we found after I reviewed my notes is that based on the oxidation rates, we can tell the knife was inside the victim for 20 minutes, and when the paramedics arrived on the scene, then a lot of the blood was dry, which means that when they yanked that knife out of the victim, there had already been 20 minutes of bleeding taking place. However, they did show up 2 minutes before the paramedics arrived.
Interesting. So let the jury know that the victim is currently residing in Mercy Hospital in critical condition. So from your perspective, do you believe that the defendant was wrong in pulling the weapon out of the victim?
From a medical standpoint, it was not the correct decision. However, that is what allowed them to be alive today. Had they not done so and garnered attention from the paramedics, they would likely be dead.
Okay.
Go.
With that, we must consider the youthfulness of my defendant when discussing morals. I believe that moral improvement is a lifelong process. Even if you see him as guilty in the moment, which he is not, if you consider this idea, you will most certainly find him innocent. Human beings are improvable and teachable. This young boy needs time to find his way. For example, I will share a personal journey. At 15, I turned my mind to learning. By 30, I found my footing. At 40, I was free of perplexities. By 50, I understood the will of heaven. By 60, I learned to give ear to others. By 70, I could follow my heart's desires without overstepping the line. How is this young boy to know the rightest of rights from the wrongs of wrongs? How is he to separate the rights and wrongs toward the middle, blurry line? May my defendant say a few words?
They may. Proceed.
Along with what Confucius has previously stated, I think it's important that we do consider one's morality. While medically, I have learned after reflecting on the situation that it was not the most effective plan of action to take this knife out of the victim. However, this was a very stressful and frustrating situation. I did not know how to act, and I made the best decision that I could, considering all morals that I'm capable of doing in my 15 years of age. Now, I have fought and I have learned all about how I can better improve from this situation and change for the future. While this situation is stressful and hard on me and all of us, I believe that the fact that this victim is now alive when they could have been dead is because of my own doing, and I really stand behind this and believe that it was the proper plan of action. In addition, my natural good and pure intentions will allow me to continue to reflect on the mistakes that I do make at a young age and improve for the future.
Go.
Clearly, my client has learned a lot and has grown as a person. With that, we must consider reflection. My defendant is aware of the situation he has gotten himself into. Sitting in this courtroom should be enough of a wake-up call for him. I stress the importance in reflection in one's own actions in finding themselves and reaching a place of moral stability and wisdom. Moral development is a personal process. I plead with you to give my defendant time to reach that finish line. People should live in harmony with the way of heaven, and we must afford my defendant that chance. This entails acting with virtue and serving as a living example to others. By reflecting on his decisions and involvement, my defendant would serve as a living example to others of someone who can overcome tragedy and trauma and live with the decisions they made. and come out of those situations stronger and wiser, bringing themselves closer and closer to full moral development. I urge us to exercise restraint in the imposition of law upon the people. Laws could correct people's behavioral mistakes, while the moral disciplines I advocated might change people completely from within. These moral disciplines can be taught, some of which include Gen, which means goodwill, empathy, generosity, humanness towards others. Li, which refers to ritual and rite of conduct. Yi, which is righteousness, duty as guardians of human and nature. Zin, which is honesty and trustworthiness. I will leave you with this. I look to you all, jurors. I want to create an image. I ask fathers, imagine your sons. Elders, brothers, imagine your younger brothers. Husbands, imagine your wives. Older friends, imagine your younger friends. Rulers, imagine your subjects. Imagine that person sitting in an alleyway alone. They have a knife in their stomach. No one else is around. Luckily, a young man, like my defendant here, passes by and sees the misery and trauma that your loved one is going through. Enter one's morals. Someone with 0 would have kept walking, uneager to help, uninterested in the misery of the loved one, unwilling to get involved because they were too concerned about themselves only. My defendant here is the opposite. He took the time and energy to stop, examine the situation, and realize that he was morally obligated to do something. He acted quickly and grabbed the knife, thinking that was the only solution to saving your loved one, and ended up being framed. Is he to blame? Quite the contrary. This proves that my defendant is one step closer to full moral development than the person who would have just walked on by. Now, isn't it safe to say you'd want my defendant, the active member of society, passing your loved one on the street?
Yeah. Jurors, how do you find the defendant?
We find the defendant not guilty.
I'm free!
Chug, 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 chug.
What am I doing on my own couch? What happened last night? Oh. I gotta get up here ready for work. Whew. Oh, man. Oh my goodness. Oh. Oh my God, what? How did this happen? I gotta call the police. Oh my, what do I do? Who is that? Hello? Hi, I woke up this morning. I found a girl dead in my bathtub. I need some assistance immediately. Yes, yeah, at the landmark. Hurry, thanks, bye. No, not you.
Again?
Officer,
Oh my God, what did you do this
I have
time?
some explaining to do. I just need some assistance right now. I don't know who
What did
this
you do
is.
this time?
So, I just woke up and I don't remember anything from last night. I really don't.
There's a dead person in your bathtub.
Officer, I don't know who she is. I don't know how that happened. I
There's
don't remember
pills on the
anything
counter.
from last
There's
night.
a dead girl in your bathtub.
It's,
I don't care. I don't care if
understand.
you have the lawyer that got OJ off a hook or Aristotle, the king of rhetoric. You're going to jail for life.
I wish for my lawyer to be Aristotle,
make any
the
wishes you
king
want.
of rhetoric.
Go.
Firstly, I would like to introduce myself. For those of you to whom I am unfamiliar, I am Aristotle. I am the king of rhetoric. I do not say this to toot my own horn, but rather to establish my credibility as someone who has a great deal of expertise on the subject of debate and rhetoric. The reason we are here today is to determine the series of events that took place on the evening of December 7, 2016, and to uncover the truth as to whether the defendant is guilty of committing murder. I would first like to offer a few reasons why one might assume the defendant is guilty based on the facts we are presented with. Firstly, he was on trial for 2 murders in the past week, this being the third. While this is certainly suspicious and quite serendipitous, there was no other evidence that was able to prove him guilty for either of the two crimes. Since he was proven not guilty both times, these accusations should not be considered in this completely unrelated trial, nor should they contribute in any way to how the jury views the defendant. Moving forward, another reason one might believe the defendant is guilty is due to the lack of clarity as to what exactly happened that night. The victim of this crime is deceased, and therefore unable to offer any detail that took place on the night of December 7th. Similarly, my client was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, so he is unable to remember the events that occurred. 2 pills, which were later discovered to be roofies, were placed in the defendant's drink while his attention was directed somewhere else. He later consumed it, resulting in his inability to remember anything that took place that night. All of this can be confirmed by hard evidence that was shown on the camera at Cornerstone. Chief Beauregard, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Let's cut straight to the point. Do you believe that my client is guilty?
I do.
And why is that?
Well, they have a history of prescription pain medications and using them more than the average person, and I do not believe it is a coincidence that the victim was killed due to an overdose on prescription pain medications.
Mr. Beauregard, do you like riflery?
I do.
How often would you say you shoot a week?
Probably about 3 to 4 times.
So would you say that you do it more than the average person?
Yes.
So if you were caught in a room with someone who was shot, is it safe to accuse you simply because you practice guns more than the average person?
Not
My
exactly.
point exactly. This connects directly to this case. I cannot accuse you based off the premise that you use guns more than the average person. So let's try this again. Do you have any other reasons to believe that my client is guilty?
I think a pretty big reason is the fact that his DNA is all over the victim's dead body.
Alright, officer. We may get a little personal here, but have you ever made love to a woman?
I have many times.
Is it wrong to say that you've ever touched a woman or kissed her during intercourse?
That is correct, I have.
So that would mean your DNA would be on her, correct?
That's fair to say.
Hypothetically, if that woman you made love to somehow died that night, would that mean that you're to blame?
I don't think that's a very realistic situation.
She could die from heart attack, stroke, suicide, falling out of a window, drowning, falling down the stairs, being killed by a robbery.
Okay.
Whatever cause of death you want, but that's beside the point. Since your fingerprints are all over the body from having sex with her earlier that night, does that mean the only possible cause of her death was from you murdering her? Thank you. Go.
Jurors, how do you find the defendant?
We find the defendant not guilty.
Aristotle, I am familiar with your 5 virtues of argument and think that you carried them out effectively in this case. The defendant is not guilty for these 5 reasons that the jurors believe. Aristotle invented a clever argument that was well refined. He organized and arranged his thoughts and ideas nicely. The style that he used to offer his speech used effective rhetorical techniques, especially when he invalidated the police officer's claims. His memorization was impressive. Finally, he delivered the argument with poise and tone that expressed confidence. His word choice was also brilliant. And that's the power of rhetoric.